You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like life, I'll rise.
I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless.
Welcome to the Black News Beat. I am your host, Dr. Kamika Campbell, and we're in a new little location. We are shooting, we're going to start shooting a little bit different for this show. We have several different locations where we shoot the show. We're going to do a live show once a month, and then we'll be in studio shooting the show without a live audience. So we are trying it out today. So hang out with us for a few moments, and we have a great show for you today. So welcome. Like I said before, we are really excited about the show today. It's a heavy time, but it is Women's History Month, and I have a very special guest for you today to talk to us about some Women's History Month happenings. So Women's History Month is a time that we set aside each March to honor the contributions of women, past, present, and future. And the 2026 theme from the National Women's History Alliance is Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future. So that's something to think about. And we'll talk more about that theme with our very special guest today. And since it's March 11th today, it's also National 311 Day. Did you know that? Did you know about National 311 Day? This is something that goes right in everything that I believe. It was founded in 2020 by the National Day Calendar and Google.org to encourage citizens to use 311 for non-emergency services. And this goes right in line with me and a lot of things I believe in the work I do in the community, because we want people to not call the police on their neighbors. We don't want that. If you have a civil issue, call 311. If it's a noise complaint, call 311. If it's things that you can handle just with a little assistance, call 311. Try to save 911 for true emergencies. So this is a reminder that sometimes the things holding communities together are not flashy at all, but they're the everyday systems and people doing the work. So remember, use 311 for non-emergencies. And this morning, we have a lot of topics to cover. We're talking the war in Iran. We're talking white supremacist propaganda showing up in Carlisle. And we are also talking the Jasmine Crockett fallout and what it says about political power in Texas, because this is something that has resonated across the country. And then in Media and Melanin, we're talking Michael B. Jordan's awards run that has people wondering, will he be getting an Oscar? And we're unpacking whether the internet is telling the truth about this so-called Gen Z backlash to Scary Movie 6. And later, we'll be joined by Karen Showalter from Moms Rising to talk about what families in Pennsylvania are carrying right now, from childcare and paid leave to what real support should look like in everyday life. But first, let's sweep these streets and see what's going on around the country and around the town. So it has been, I think we're on day 11 or 12 of a war. We're at war, guys, which is completely insane. Literally a surprise attack that does not have the approval of Congress. The conflict involving Iran has escalated into a broader regional crisis with military strikes, retaliation, civil harm, civilian harm, and growing fears about what comes next across the Middle East. And there's a lot of warring ideas that people feel like they're not getting enough information about the war. People feel that it's an illegal war. You'll hear folks like former Vice President Kamala Harris calling it a war of choice. So there's a lot of rhetoric around it. But one of the things I think that has been the most gruesome about this war so far is the over 160 girls that were literally bombed to death, along with some of their teachers and staff at their school. So things like that really put in perspective to me the cost of war. And we really should be thinking about that, not just in a way that, they're over there and it doesn't bother us, but this is also causing prices to spike at home. There's places in California and places in New York where gas has already reached like between $6 and $8. So these types of things are very difficult to reconcile. So we should be thinking about that, and also about the loss of life, the cost of life that comes with war. For our American soldiers, I just talked to a friend of mine who told me he's in the Air Force. He told me today that he's probably going to be deployed in 2 weeks. So that's very terrifying for me, having somebody who's close to our family, my friends, cousins, so many people that literally haven't been to war since the early 2000s, since many years ago, are telling me that they're about to go off and fight. For what? Because the government hasn't told us why we're in this war. We don't know. My guess is probably about oil. We'll see what actually shakes out. They're saying it's because Iranians had this nuclear supply. However, it has been proven and even said by the president himself that they obliterated the nuclear supply. So why are we at war? That is the question. So when you guys hear coverage of the war, what do you pay attention to first? The politics or the people living through it? And while we're watching the world's violence overseas, here at home, hate is still finding its way into our neighborhoods. So the next story here is for is actually comes out of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is not too far from Harrisburg. We are 25 minutes away from Carlisle, and literally about 25 minutes away from where this happened. White supremacist propaganda was reportedly left on cars and properties in Carlisle, raising alarm in the community and prompting public condemnation. This kind of material is not random. It is meant to intimidate, test boundaries, and make hate feel visible and comfortable in public spaces. So my take is this: we should never water down these controversial flyers into just pieces of paper that were left on people's houses. Call it what it is: organized hate, and it counts on communities minimizing the threat until it gets worse. So for the folks watching in the audience, what should a community's response be when white supremacist messaging shows up in public? And this is a really good question. One of the things that I talked about on the Black News Beat Facebook page was that Cumberland County actually has two recognized sundown towns according to the Tougaloo Project, which is a Toluga, project, which is a compilation. It's a history and justice project. It compiled all of the states and all the sundown towns that they could recognize in present day, like historically where they were. Now, there are very clear sundown towns, and there are some more unspoken sundown towns where people were not allowed to live. And two of such places on the West Shore in Cumberland County were Mechanicsburg and Camp Hill. And those are not very far from Carlisle. And this really is hearkening back to those sundown towns because they want to make people feel afraid. They want people to feel like we are everywhere, we're watching you, and we will rise again. Well, what are they hearkening back to? If you saw the packets online, and you can definitely go on the page and look at them. If you saw the packets they were handing out, they had 3 mints with the kosher K on them for KKK. What does the KKK hearken back to in this country? Black subjugation, slavery, very difficult times for Black people through lynchings and harassment. We are talking stories like Emmett Till and so many others. That is one that's a hot button one. But this is the time that they're hearkening back to, even though they're saying distributed without any malicious intent. That was on the flyer. But they also said, we are everywhere. We're your brothers. We're at your schools. We do this. We do that. And we want you to come join us. They're recruiting. And the website was white-power.org. And I think this is very interesting that it's happening here, and it's happening 6 months after the WKKK, or the Women's KKK, was in Mechanicsburg passing out materials at the Halloween parade. And the community came together around that. No doubt they will also come together around this. And my take, also the other part of my take, is this: even though they said that they are everywhere, so are we. We are everywhere. And we do not have to hide under the cover of night in peppermints and plastic to gain support. So what you should do is make sure that you're supporting people affected, supporting Black and brown folks who are very immediately affected by things like this, with the terror and the fear that folks may be feeling. Support them, and also stand with them. Stand with them in spaces, speak up in your community. Let folks like this know that they're not allowed, and they should stay under the cover of night if that's what they want to do, because that's what they literally did. They literally distributed this stuff in the middle of the night. So stand with your neighbors, friends, stand with folks who are affected, and stand for your community. Do you want this in your community? Because I don't think you do. I don't think you want that in your community. While and speaking of systems that reveal exactly who gets protected and who gets pushed aside, let's talk about the fallout around Jasmine Crockett. Wow, this was a big one. So the conversation around Jasmine Crockett's race fallout has opened up a bigger conversation and concerns about racism in politics, voter access, why the way Black women are judged when they try to step into power, and why it's happening. So there are a couple of interesting things that were happening around her campaign, and around Tallarico's campaign. So if you kind of missed this story, there was a primary runoff for a Senate seat, the Democratic primary race for a Senate seat in Texas, with a one James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, who was a sitting House of Representatives member who was drawn out her district. And a lot of folks are surmising that she ran for Senate pretty late because she decided in December because she got drawn out of her district. James Tallarico was already running, and then she stepped into the race. So there was already some controversy around that. And a lot of people are like, well, she lost because she was not a good candidate and she ran a bad campaign. However, there were some other things at play. I think everybody could always run a good campaign, a better campaign who loses. As a political operative in South Central Pennsylvania, that is my true belief. If you lose your campaign, you obviously need to do something better. However, there were so many other things happening around her campaign with a couple of influencers, particularly white male influencers, that really got into the fabric of the race. One being the push of this idea that she was not electable. Jasmine Crockett is not electable. She's not electable. Why is she not electable? Well, she's too loud. She's gonna battle with Congress and she just wants to roast them and she doesn't want to work across the aisle. So many things people were saying about her. She just likes to hear herself talk. She just wants to be popular. All of these things people were saying about Jasmine Crockett, right? Not a lot of her on her substance. Even though her and Tallarico were very close in substance, very close on platforms, they just found him more electable. They also said that he would gain the Republican support, right, if he was put on the ballot more than she would. So it turns out that when you look at the numbers and how they're broken down, way more white people in Texas voted for James Tallarico, and almost 85% of Black folks voted for Jasmine Crockett. So that's kind of what happened. But this is bigger than one candidate or one campaign. And we saw this explode in so many spaces. Elizabeth Booker Houston and so many other Black and brown influencers who were supporting Jasmine Crockett, Lene Vinay, so many of them had very astute observations about how Jasmine Crockett was treated as a Black woman in this race and how folks were responding to those critiques, right? Especially white folks in these political circles. And they were very much like, no, it's not because she's Black, it's because she was a bad candidate, ignoring all of the racism that actually was spewed from these folks like Rogue DNC, Keith Edwards, and many others. There were several others. So Black women are expected to save democracy, usually is how I feel. Energize voters, carry the political movements, but when it's time to fully back them, the standards suddenly shift, and Texas cannot move forward without confronting that honestly. And neither can the rest of the United States. Pennsylvania can't move forward without confronting this as well. I was part of a group that was organizing Black women for Pennsylvania, and we very earnestly went to our Democratic state party and said, y'all need to pay more attention to Black women in Pennsylvania. And they heard our request and virtually ignored it. And that's a real thing that happened. And I was there for it. And what happens with that is you build distrust among your most reliable voters, your most reliable base. They don't want to trust you anymore when you don't hear their concerns. And this is not isolated to Texas or Pennsylvania. This is happening across the country. So I'll throw it to the online audience and to folks listening. Do you think Black women in politics are judged more harshly than everybody else, even by the people who say they support them? Just something to think about. So let's shift now from politics to pop culture, because there is one actor who is having the kind of season that can change his whole career trajectory. So let's move into media and melanin. So is Michael B. Jordan setting himself up for an Oscar? Michael B. Jordan has been stacking major award season wins, and now the conversation is whether all that momentum can carry him to an Oscar. This is about more than just a trophy, of course. If you haven't seen Sinners, please go watch Sinners. And most all of these awards are centered around Sinners. The cinematography is beautiful. The acting was amazing. The storyline was fresh. A lot of people say, well, it was a copy of this other movie or a copy of another movie. True, but it was presented in a fresh way with beautiful everything. Everything looks gorgeous. I don't like scary movies, actually, and I loved this movie. I did kind of cover my eyes for some of the vampire parts, but it's fine. So this is more than about just a trophy. It's about whether the industry is finally catching up to what many audiences have already believed about his talent and range. A lot of folks notice that people have kind of set Michael B. Jordan aside for various reasons as an actor. Oh, he does fluffy pieces. He doesn't do anything real. I thought he was excellent in Black Panther as well. It's one of the places where I first saw him and loved him. Not first, but like on the big screen, saw him and loved him. He's been in a billion things at this point, but I really thought he stood out in that movie, and I saw him as a villain for the first time, and I loved it. Creed films and Fruitvale Station, and him and Ryan Coogler have really developed this relationship where they are just hit after hit after hit after hit. So in my mind, it's time. It's time for Michael B. Jordan to get an Oscar. So we are hoping that happens for him. And this feels less like hype and more like a real turning point for him and a premonition. Getting the Actors Award is probably one of the biggest honors of an actor's life because it's your peers giving you that award. So I think, and it also sets you up to be one of the top contenders for a Grammy. So he's no longer just a fan favorite. He's being treated like a serious awards force, which I think is great. So do you think it's finally time for Michael B. Jordan's Oscar a year, or does he still have more to prove? Y'all better not say the last part. He does not have more to prove, okay? And from prestige to parody, the internet is doing a whole lot with Scary Movie 6, but the backlash story may not be as clean as people are making it. So, Scary Movie 6 is coming out. Not one of my favorite series. People love this franchise. They love the Wayans brothers. Marlon's doing his thing. He really has set into himself. He's in his 50s now, which is crazy. I am going to be 45 this year. And when I was literally 10, 11 years old, these folks had In Living Color. The Wayans family was doing all this amazing work. And so to see him kind of ripen into this like movie producer and director and being able to put funds behind a franchise like Scary Movie 6, which is coming out in June, is really cool. But after Marlon Wayans leaned into the idea that Scary Movie 6 would push back on cancel culture, so he said he's canceling cancel culture, that was his line, social media started buzzing with claims that Gen Z was already offended and trying to boycott the movie. Dun, dun, dun. But the reactions online looked a lot more mixed than unified. Internet narratives can be harmful, can turn a handful of loud posts into fake generational consensus, because folks are asking questions like, is Gen Z not in vibe or not in line with Marlon's comedy? And that really shapes how people talk about comedy. It shapes about culture and who gets blamed for being too sensitive, and whether parody crosses the line, whether the kind of critiques, the sharp comedic critiques that come with the territory, with this franchise and with Marlon Wayans, does that cross the line? And the answer for me is, maybe, possibly. Are some of the jokes ableist? Yes. Do we do transphobia? Absolutely not. So is it a loud Gen Z outcry? I don't think it is. But I do think it's important to have the conversation around how franchises like this age. So Scary Movie 6, the last Scary Movie 5 was over 10 years ago, 13 years ago in 2013. And what people tolerated in 2013 and what they're tolerating in 2026 are two different things. And so we need to talk about what that looks like. How does this comedy grow up with the culture, right? How does this change? And what do we accept as a culture and what do we not accept? And what does that look like? And can parody cross the line into just being mean and punching down? Of course it can. And how do we deal with that? So that's kind of my take on it. I don't think there's some large Gen Z outrage, but I do think we do need to be very cognizant and very aware of how our comedy grows up with us, especially things that we enjoyed when we were young. So do you think the backlash to Scary Movie 6 is real, Or is this one of those internet stories that got bigger than actual reaction to what was actually happening? So when we come back, we're about to take a little break. We are sitting with someone focused on real life support for families here in Pennsylvania. And right before that, we're going to get to our There's Nothing to Do in Harrisburg. I'm so excited for all the things coming up. So we have a couple of events. I always like to make sure I cover these events and make sure I talk about what's happening in our community, because from the moment I got here, folks are like, there's nothing to do in here. There's lots of things to do in Harrisburg. So wait, which government with Justin Douglas at Pursuit Co-working is coming up today at 6 p.m. You should get there and listen to what Justin has to say. He's running for Congress, and in PA 10, he's running on the Democratic ticket. The primary is coming up. Everyone just filed yesterday, so everyone's on the ballot. Yay! Unless there's a challenge. There might be a challenge. But unless he's challenged, he is on the ballot. Janelle Stelson's on the ballot. We have, I think, one more Democratic contender. We have independent contenders. And then on the Republican side, we have somebody who is actually primarying the incumbent, Scott Perry. Karen, I forget Karen's last name. Sorry, Karen. But she is challenging Scott Perry, which is something we have not had in about 3 or 4 cycles. So this is very exciting. It's a really full field. So one of those folks is Justin. He's having an event tonight at Pursuit Co-working, which is right here in Midtown. Please go ahead and attend that event. And then one of my favorite events of the season is by the Community Uplift of Central Pennsylvania. They present the Kappa Omega's 59th annual Mardi Gras weekend and semi-formal. This is my favorite event. I love to go. It is always so much fun. They're going to be back at the Penn Harris Hotel, which is right across the river by the Camp Hill bypass. And it is 3 days of just amazingness. You have a really fun party on Friday night with like 3 rooms of music and different genres. Saturday night, you have the semi-formal and the midnight breakfast. I love to eat, so midnight breakfast is just my speed. And then on Sunday, and then they do golfing really early Saturday. I don't do the golfing. They're up at like 7. I'm not doing that. But a lot of people go golfing. And then on Sunday morning, there is brunch at the Kappa Omega House at 2020 State Street. They say breakfast, but honey, I'll get there for brunch time because it's from 9 to 1. Why do I have to be there the whole time? I'll get there at 11. But it is a beautiful weekend. Everyone comes out. People come from across the nation to come to the Omegas, this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weekend. I mean, I'm going to put some pictures up from past times that I have gone to the ball, and I will be there. I will be there with bells on. Okay. And I want to see you there too. I have to actually call my contact and get some tickets. So if you need a ticket, call me. I'll call my friend. Okay. And the next thing that's coming up is this Friday, the 13th, as well as She Builds the Future, a night of empowerment. Shout out to my friends, Be Seated by Us, and Miss Cherie Livingston, another woman being featured. They are doing this from 6 to 9 p.m. on Friday. Their tickets are available online, and they are saying to join us for an unforgettable night of empowerment, an evening dedicated to inspiration, connection, and community impact. And again, featuring one of my very, very favorite people, Dr. Cherie Livingston, who founded For the Love of Women, along with a couple other young women, to help do things like provide women's, what do you call those things? Like for your period and different things like that, provide those products for folks and really center on women's issues. So I'm very excited that they're having a great event that honors at least one person. There are several others who are being honored that I really like. Next, we will be talking about this event, but we do have a community forum coming up in Carlisle. And Karen, I'm gonna save that one because Karen's gonna come talk to us about it. I want to make sure that she gets the last word on that. On March 21st, we have the Harrisburg St. Patty's Day Parade. I will be downtown, yours truly. I will have a table with toddies, tariffs, and taxes, and I will be handing out non-alcoholic toddies as we talk about taxes and tariffs and encouraging people to tell their stories about how that's affecting them. And then every single Tuesday, we, young professionals of color, Greater Harrisburg, we are at Culture & Co. And Culture & Co. is our premier downtown co-working space. You should definitely join. It's about $33 a month to be a member, or $125 a quarter. And at Topics Tuesday, we watch City Council and we talk about it. We also last night we talked about data centers and how they're affecting our community. And we are always there at 19.5 North 4th Street, right here across from Strawberry Square, talking about the issues, talking about current events, and also supporting each other and creating community. Wow. Well, we made it through the first segment, and we will be right back in just a few moments with our very special guest, Karen Showalter of Moms Rising. See you in a sec.
I served in the Air Force for 23 years. I was proud to stand for my country. But I'm not going to stand for what Congressman Scott Perry is doing in Washington. He's forgotten about us. Perry voted to cut health care that veterans rely on. That's just not right. We deserve our health care, and Congressman Perry is trying to take it away to give more tax cuts to billionaires. That's just cruel. I'm an independent. I care about issues that impact veterans. I wish Congressman Perry would stand with us.
This is comfy. This is cozy. Thank you, sir.
I'm looking at you.
Here we go.
I'm looking at you right now.
Hello and welcome back to the Black News Beat. We are here with Karen Showalter, and I want to tell you a little bit about Karen before we get started. So our guest today is Karen Showalter. She is from Moms Rising, where she serves as the Senior Campaign Director and Pennsylvania Moms Force Director. Very fancy titles. Her work focuses on issues including paid family leave, paid family and medical leave, equal pay, and early learning, and she has spent more than 2 decades in advocacy and organizing. I've been having trouble saying that word today, advocacy. I don't know why. Karen is joining us to help us ground this conversation in what families are actually facing right now, not just in the headlines, but at kitchen tables, in childcare decisions, in work schedules, and the pressure so many parents and caregivers are feeling every single day right now. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me.
How's everything going?
Pretty good. It's warming up so that I hopefully makes people feel more energy and like it's time to get out and do things in their community. And
Absolutely.
I'm excited about all the events this weekend.
There's so many things happening.
I too did not know about most of these. So
See?
Thank you for that.
I try to tell folks, like, it's such a great
There's
little
a lot
city to be in, region really, because the one event is right across the river. So it's like, it's a cool place to be.
Yeah.
So first, did I get everything in your bio? Is there anything else you want to tell us about you and what you do?
Yes, I have 2 kids. So like so many of us, we are all caregivers, whether we're caring for elderly aging parents or family members, for our own kids or otherwise. So I feel like that's a big part of what I bring in this world.
Yeah.
And I'm also a small farmer, so I've got that hat
Really?
as well. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarity between growing and fostering things, I think, across the board. So I find a really nice kind of parallel in my storyline between working in communities and working with soil and the earth and plants and all of that.
I would have never even made that connection. That's really astute. That's really cool.
There's a lot. We could unpack that maybe on another show. We can do it.
I will literally have you back for a whole hour. Yes, we'll do that.
Yeah. I'm also an aspiring weaver, so we could do it on that front as well.
What else do you do? Just go down the list. What else? That's so cool.
I just find a lot of joy in a lot of things and learning from people. All these spaces have tremendous leaders and elders and people who've been in for so long that there's just so much to do and learn in this world, as there is in Harrisburg.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right. So let's get into it. What are you hearing most from families in Pennsylvania right now?
Families are struggling. Yeah. I feel like that's no news to any of us. Yeah. And I was taking a lot of inspiration from the first segment because there is, while we're holding this great weight of this moment and skyrocketing costs and feeling like our representatives don't really speak for us, we also have huge opportunity. So as the weather warms up and we're feeling like we want to get out and about, think about that like concretely. Yes, go for a great walk. It's been a very harsh winter, but also re-engage your community if you've taken a bit of a break. And I know this past year has been not just in the headlines heavy, it's been actively and very acutely terrifying to many of us on the ground, many of our neighbors who are literally scared to be out in their community, to be out going to the store and all of that. And we need to hold that weight while also remembering we have so much power. And that's why there is so much focus on central Pennsylvania, because electeds know people are deeply impacted. They are in a state of real hurt. And they are not taking it any longer. 100%. So we have this huge warming of all the things, right? Of the weather and then also of our movement to demand better.
100%.
So families are hurting. That's what we feel and we hear. And we also know families are mobilizing and they're not sitting quiet during this time.
That's right. Did you see that Scott Perry is the second most vulnerable member in Congress?
He's my representative.
He's mine too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And I'm happy for him. I love that for him. And I want people, I want people to really organize themselves around that issue, around that point. So yeah, I'm hoping personally, I don't speak for any entities represented here, but my opinions are my own. Okay. But yeah, I think it's really time to not just hold them accountable, but also like people feel beat down when they have a representative that constantly is dismissing them. Even people who keep voting for him. That's the funny part about it. Like people will tell me when I ask them why they vote for somebody who votes against them, they'll say, well, what else? What is the other option? I'm not going to vote for XYZ. I'm not going to vote for this other person. They're an unknown, or at least I know what I'm getting kind of idea. So y'all don't even really like him, which is just interesting to me.
We need to internalize and really act on the idea that we can do better. Yes. We can manifest better. We're not locked into any of this.
Any of it.
And we can, it might take some time. It might take a lot of work to overturn these systems, but there's no need to keep replicating what is here now.
Season, every single cycle. And I love what you just said. Like, it might take a lot of work. It also takes less work if more of us do the work, right? Like if more of us are, what are they saying? Like many cultures, they have some variation of the saying, many hands make light work, right? It's much easier to overturn systems. It's much easier to do the things if there are more people doing it.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. Right. Well, this is about you, not about me. Yeah. Why do issues like paid family leave, the things that you're advocating for, and childcare remain so urgent right now, even now?
Oh, just that they haven't been addressed in decades.
That's right.
We have seen the wealthiest continue to get wealthier and wealthier. We've seen corporate profits skyrocket, yet we are decades behind in our care policies. And again, all of us are caregivers, and we need to own that title. And we need to demand the ability to both work and to care for our people and to care for ourselves. So all of these systems are in massive need of investment. Paid family and medical leave gives people time off to care for themselves or a loved one in the case of a major medical crisis at a very minimal cost per paycheck that both employers and employees contribute to, like a couple dollars per paycheck. And it does things like help you take a couple weeks to undergo cancer treatments, be with a loved one in their final days, welcome a new baby, support somebody coming out of addiction treatment, and so many other critical things. And I think what's interesting is these aren't policies we can afford to not do. People are literally losing their jobs, they're losing their housing, they're losing their cars, because it's not like you can just defer having a new child or defer having cancer or some, really intense diagnosis that you need time to care for.
Absolutely.
And if we care for workers, we grow our economy much more than we are now. Right now, it's this kind of patched together system that's incredibly exploitative of workers. I was reading earlier, something like 1 in 4 working moms is in a low wage job. And our minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. You can work full time with extra hours and still not be able to afford an apartment or housing for your family. Like there's something so fundamentally broken there. So all of these policies are decades behind. We have real options on the table, and we need to demand leaders who are here for doing that work.
That's right. That's right. And I also, as soon as you said it, I was like, no, I don't think people are thinking about this. But we are all caregivers. And I think we have this idea that only a certain sector of the community does the work, usually the women. However, and usually the women who have children. But all parts of our society are doing work, caring for people, parents. A friend of mine, she calls him her bonus son. She just adopted her nephew. All these different kinds of care are happening in our communities. Why is it important, and how do we realize that and put into action that how do we change our mindset around the fact that we are actually all caregivers?
Right. I think that's exactly right. And to even go upstream, a lot of kinds of caregiving were historically associated with people of color. So we have like this baked in bias towards a lot of caregiving, and we need to own the fact that caregiving is something we all do and we all are. And some of our reactions to like tipped workers, tipped workers aren't out there to buy a fancy pair of sneakers. And or if they are, like a lot of kids are and workers are buying clothes. And like that's a very legitimate thing, right? Like it's not throwaway money. And in addition, I should correct myself, because tipped workers, the majority of them are not students on a holiday break trying to do something flippant with their money. They're literally trying to put food on the table. And it's the same with childcare workers. There's a long history of that kind of work being associated with people of color who provided fundamental like really the bones, to go back to gardening or weaving, right? Any of these metaphors work, right? The things that hold us together.
That's right.
And we need to invest in that. We need to recognize we all have a role in that, and we all have a role in fixing it.
I love it. I love this. Last question before we take a break. So you talked a tiny bit about not a tiny bit. You've been talking about what families are facing right now, but and childcare decisions. I was asking about work schedules, but what I want to dig into a little bit is, how do you think everyday people like this who are overworked, who are carers, like this care work piece is huge, but how do they affect these systems? How do they get involved with this when they are so busy? Yeah. How do they do it?
I think that's the $1 million question, right? So I can talk a little bit about how I look at it and then how Moms Rising structures our work. So I'll start with the Moms Rising bit. We make taking action really easy. You can sign a petition, you can make a phone call, it'll come right to your phone. And if that's what you can do that day or that month, it's brilliant. And you join thousands of parents around the country doing the same. If you can share your story, even just a few sentences around how something impacts you, that's even more powerful. And we consolidate those and deliver them to leaders. We look at ourselves as kind of proxies for parents who can't be there in the moment because of all of these swirling things impacting them. Mm-hmm. But I would encourage people to, I know everybody is so overwhelmed. If you have this even small amount of time to sign something, to call, to share a few sentences on what you're experiencing as part of a movement, that's how we can bring those voices forward. Awesome. And I would say, I guess more broadly, storytelling is the basis of all change making. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know and feel that your experience is valid. You are not alone. You didn't fail to plan for what's happening to you now. When we hear that from one or two people, maybe you could say that. We hear it from hundreds of thousands and millions of people that they're not making it with what they're earning, with what they're paying for childcare or other kinds of care in their life, for how the systems are working for them. Yeah. And that's a structural issue. That's not a you issue.
That's right.
And so feel like you are valid and you're part of this work and your story is valid and it's powerful. And we know storytelling is really the game changer when it comes to movement work. We kind of pair them together across our space. So we have a lot of like signatures and calls and things like that. We also have a lot of the story behind things. And we know research has shown as little as one story can influence a legislator and how they vote on an issue. Mm-hmm. And they carry those stories with them into committee rooms and into hearings and into votes. And so your story really matters, and find a place and a way to share it. Moms Rising's one. You were talking about collecting stories at the St. Patty's Day parade.
That's right.
Your story matters. It really is powerful. And if anything, it helps remind you you're not alone. And it helps us collect really the important story and content that we need to remind leaders that things aren't working for parents and families, and we need to do better.
That's right. Two things to take away. Stories matter, and this is a structural issue. This is not a you issue.
That's right.
I love that. So we're going to hear a little bit more from you right after this break we're about to take. We'll see you in a few minutes.
I built my coffee shop from the ground up. Every penny counts. So these tariffs are creating chaos. Coffee beans are imported. I can't afford to pay the tariffs out of pocket. These tariffs have the potential to destroy my business. But Congressman Scott Perry supported the tariffs. They're another tax driving up costs on small businesses like mine to give tax cuts to big corporations and billionaires. Scott Perry should be looking out for small businesses instead of big corporations. I wish Scott Perry was looking out for us.
Welcome back to the Black News Beat. We are here with Karen Showalter from Moms Rising. You heard all her fancy titles, and we are talking about how, we approach this idea about telling your story, how to change systems when people who are doing the care work, particularly women in our society, are so busy, right? Because you got to do the work. You got to work. Unfortunately, I don't like work, but we got to do it. Actually, I like the work I'm doing now. Actually, It's great, but I usually don't like work because it seems so tedious and it seems not to serve a purpose that I want to serve. And so, it's difficult to now find time to like make a difference, So my next question is, okay, what do lawmakers still fail to understand about what caregivers are carrying, especially because they're so busy, right? That sometimes we're getting those stories, we're doing the things, but sometimes our legislators still miss the point. They still miss the point. So what are they missing?
Yeah, I have a couple answers to that.
Yep.
So one is that our economies are proven to be stronger when we have these care policies in place. There's really no debate around that. So they need to recognize that. They need to carry that data. They need to stand up for that fact when they're alongside their peers and voting for these issues. The second is they need to understand that parents and caregivers are voting.
Yeah.
And we're watching, and we're not making it right now. Yeah. So we're looking for systems that will support us. And we are the numbers. We are the people. Right. And there's no more time to wait. So they need to feel the heat from constituents and voters, as well as be the champions in the rooms where decisions are getting made.
Amen to that. And we have something very special to talk about because you have an event coming up that that Moms Rising is hosting very soon. That's right. It is the Community Forum Uplifting Pennsylvania Women, Workers, and Families event. One more time. Community Forum Uplifting Pennsylvania Women, Workers, and Families event on March 19th. What can folks expect, and why are you doing this event?
That's right. Yep, it's March 19th in Carlisle in the evening, and we're meeting with 3 members of the Women's Caucus, the Congressional Women's Caucus. So our representative from Pennsylvania, Chrissy Houlihan, we have Rep. Becca Bayland and Rep. Leger Fernandez. And they're coming as leaders from Washington, eager to hear what's happening on the ground here in the 10th. And remind folks that there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of opportunities on the table, and parent voice is urgently needed to advance those opportunities now and always. In addition, there will be food. There's going to be a lot of fun things like kids tables. Kids are very welcome. There's going to be a craft table led by our partners at Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates, a photo booth led by our friends at Red Wine and Blue, and a lot of other partner organizations like Affordable PA who are going to be there as well, helping make this a really great moment. So it's a moment to connect with leaders, to get re-inspired, to get information, bring the kids, bring the family. There'll be food, fun, and a lot to make the evening a good one.
That's good. That sounds really great. Yes, and make sure I shout out Affordable PA. We'll be in the building, making sure that we do whatever we can. We're also going to be collecting stories, tabling, doing what we need to do. I'm so excited about the event. One, because it's in Carlisle. And I think Carlisle doesn't get as much of this as it needs. So I'm glad you're there and you're doing this. So we'll be there, and I'll be sharing it with all my friends. So
amazing. Thank you.
Tell the folks how they can get in contact with you if they want to work with Moms Rising, talk to you, or talk to somebody who, you're a very busy woman. So whoever you designate, how can folks get in contact?
I would love it. So we're Moms Rising on everything. And I'm just Karen, Karen, at momsrising.org.
That's perfect. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us and fabulous. For the work you're doing. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yes, I feel so privileged that you're saying thank you to me. This is amazing. And thank you for being on the Black News Beat. And we will be right back with Last Lap. See you guys in a sec.
Tonight in Harrisburg, the young professionals of color are honoring Black History Month by looking ahead.
Fox 43's Melina Brown has more on the event focused on Black History Month and Harrisburg's future Juneteenth festivities.
In a room filled with community leaders, families, and young people, the future.
I am Little Miss Black Pennsylvania Jr.
and the foundation of Harrisburg stood side by side.
I am the Juneteenth concert chair, as well as YPOC board, and founder and CEO of Power Choice Productions.
The young professionals of color hosted the event to honor Black History Month, with a special focus on the city's upcoming Juneteenth celebrations. Organizers say it's about more than just planning a festival, it's about celebrating the culture.
Music, art, storytelling, fashion, community, entrepreneurship.
Part of Thursday night's event was the focus on connection. People listened to stories, music, and art, while community leaders encouraged the next generation to take ownership of their future.
Black history is important to me because it's about my origins, and I feel like everybody should go out and learn more about Juneteenth. And I feel like that it's important that everybody learns about what happened back then.
The event highlighted the week-long festivities happening in Harrisburg for Juneteenth, including a parade and a concert open to all.
It's a very diversified experience. In a sense, there's not just one genre of individuals. You have older, you have younger. It's family-oriented, it's educational, it's fun.
Organizers say events like these help bridge the gap between generations and continue to be a space where history isn't just remembered, but lived, shared, and passed down.
It's a great way for us to be able to just celebrate the uniqueness that we share, and where we can have pride in the things that we do, and to give hope and to just stimulate our people with joy, innovation, creativity, and fun. And we like to have a good time, so come to the cookout.
Yeah, everybody should probably come out here and, see about Juneteenth.
Milena Brown, Fox 43 News.
That's fine. It's no problem. Well, today was quite the show. Thank you for joining us in this new format, in our new location. I appreciate y'all so much. We're going to be doing live shows once a month. So the next Black News Beat is going to be on March the 26th at Capital City Music Hall, and we'll have special guests and everything like that. We are so excited that you joined us in this format. Please share the stream. It will disappear after a month. So if you go back to your Facebook page, it is gone. But you'll also see some reels and TikToks and shorts and all the other formats that you can share this great information in. So we talked about war. We talked about how hate shows up close to home, which, shout out to the folks in Carlisle. And we talked about politics, pop culture, and what families are carrying when the cameras are off and real life is very much lifing. And I think the thing sitting with me the most is this. People are tired. They're tired of the chaos, of the disrespect, of the system asking them to survive things they should never have to normalize in the first place. And since it's Women's History Month, I also want to say this clearly. So much of that weight keeps landing on women, just like we talked about with Karen today. Women in politics, women in families, women in communities, women holding it together when nobody checks on how heavy the burden is. So if there's one thing I hope we keep making space for, it's honesty, honest conversations, honest care, honest accountability, because people cannot heal in places where they're constantly being asked to pretend like everything is fine. No audience is in the studio today, just us. And maybe that makes this feel even more real. I'm Dr. Kamiki Campbell, and as I say after every show, love on yourselves, be kind to yourselves, be kind to people in your community, and also clap for yourselves. Give yourself a pat on the back, because you are doing it. You are here. You are thriving. You're being who you need to be every day, and we'll continue to show up together in the community. So I'll see you on the 26th for another Black News Beat. And don't forget, I'm your host, Dr. Kamiki Campbell, and this has been the first studio episode of the Black News Beat. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day. Bye.